Sylvanas is quite the contrarian character. Ask two different people how they feel about her, and you'll most likely get two different answers. She's either the best Warchief, or the worst, or just an attempt at Blizzard of putting a fan favorite character in the position of power. So, why Sylvanas exactly? Is she really as bad as people say? Why is she such a fan favorite character? Is she just the next Garrosh? Well, this video will attempt to answer all of those questions. Sylvanas started her story out as a pretty generic character, a standard stock fantasy princess elf ranger who was just a huge thorn in Arthas' side when he was trying to take the Sunwell. After her failure, Arthas turned her into a banshee and forced her to serve him while he destroyed her homeland. Later on, when Arthas' power was weakening, Sylvanas was able to break free of his control and nearly succeeded in killing Arthas before Kel'Thuzad came in and saved his life. With her home destroyed and all of a sudden in control of an army of undead and dark monsters, what was she to do next? Well, revenge against Arthas was a good start, so that's where she went from there. But seeing as the whole world just got done fighting a war against the Undead Scourge and the Legion, they were not too keen on Sylvanas and her Forsaken's existence. Try as she might to convince her previous allies that they no longer served the Lich King, she was still shunned and in fact, actively hunted down by everyone. No one wanted to work with a faction of undead, let alone leave them alive. Sylvanas was constantly surrounded by enemies on all sides who saw her and her people's existence as something that needed to be eliminated. But luckily for her, the Horde took them in. The Tauren were sympathetic to their cause and convinced Thrall to allow them in the Horde. They tried joining with the Alliance. A lot of the people, if not nearly all of the undead, were once part of it, but that was never going to happen. Many of the undead still have living family in other parts of the world that never want to see them again. The existence of the undead is nothing but being constantly shunned and horrified at. Even other members of the Horde don't really like them, just kind of tolerate them and see them as disposable fodder to fight for them. But they don't actively try to kill them, which was a good point. Being born into the world as an undead is being born into a world of enemies. In the undead starting zone, you're shown that all new Forsaken are given a choice. Join the Forsaken under Sylvanas, or go off on your own, free to do whatever you want as long as it's not directly harmful to the Forsaken or their allies, or to be killed again. Most undead choose to join Sylvanas. Honestly, there's not really a practical alternative choice in the matter, but there are others who choose to do other things. One of the undeads goes off on his own and forms a rebellion against the Forsaken, which you're then given quests to help put a stop to. He was given the freedom to choose what he wanted to do, and he chose to fight Sylvanas, which of course meant he had to be put down. This goes to show that undead aren't forcibly bound to Sylvanas and the Forsaken, as the rebellion had quite a few followers and wasn't just the one guy. And another undead decides to go back to her home to see her family. But things don't go well for her. Her family sentences her to death, and sicks the rest of the Scarlet Crusade after her. But luckily for her, she happened to be an incredibly powerful shadow hunter, and kills her captives and spends the rest of the zone hunting down her former allies. And even after you help her kill her father and get her revenge, she still chooses to not join the Forsaken. And the Forsaken let her go, because service is a choice. Life is incredibly hard for undeads, so joining Sylvanas is usually just their best bet. And the only undeads who manage to succeed on their own are almost always incredibly powerful on their own. Like Lillian Voss from the Undead Starting Zone, Alonis Fal, a leader in the Priest Order Hall and the creator of the First Paladins, Meryl Fellstorm, a leader in the Mage Order Hall and an incredibly powerful mage in his own right with ties to Corona, and Gunther Arcanus, an undead lich who hangs out on his own island in the middle of the Terrasful Glades. Not part of the Forsaken, but also left completely to his own devices. All that to say, while Sylvanas leads the undead follow her willingly and are not forced like the Lich King. And because they choose to follow her, she tries her best to look out for them and their best interests. After all, she's in the same boat as them. When the Horde and the Alliance go to Northrend to deal with Arthas, Sylvanas obviously shows up and throws in her support. But then her own men betray her and the Horde at the Wrathgate. While Sylvanas does help put a stop to Putris and Varimathras, the betrayal still left a very sour taste in the mouth of the other Horde members who barely tolerated their existence in the first place. Things were not looking good for them, and losing the support of the Horde would be the end of them. And then, the Lich King was killed, with Sylvanas not playing a major role in it. With the Lich King dead, she didn't really see a reason to keep on living. The entire world saw the undead as unnatural, and she didn't really disagree, so she threw herself from the top of Icecrown Citadel in a bid to commit suicide. But after dying, she saw hell, and it was a terrible place. Luckily, the Valks, who had previously worked for the Lich King, managed to bring her back to life, and one of them even took her place in hell. After seeing that, she knew what she had to do. She not only had to make sure she never ended up in there again, but to also make sure her people didn't share the same fate. Come Cataclysm, and Garrosh ordered Sylvanas to take Gilneas. The fight went very well for them. Sylvanas is a great military tactician who's not afraid to use morally gray tactics. But in the moment of triumph, she was betrayed yet again by a newly raised undead Vincent Godfrey and killed. The Valkyrie were able to bring her back to life once again, but they lost more Valkyrie the more they did that. And because of this event, Sylvanas became convinced that the Valkyrie were the future of the Forsaken. So when she found out about a way to have the Queen of the Valkyrie be in service to her, she went up to the Queen Valk and asked very nicely if she'd join the Forsaken and help them continue as a race. Oh wait, that's not what happened. Because that would have been stupid as hell. She would have obviously, and very rightly so, have been turned down. So when she tried to enslave the Queen of the Valks, I mean, really, who could blame her? Her people were dying out, and the Valkyrie were the only way to replenish their numbers. She's willing to do morally reprehensible things for the sake of her people. Not to diminish what she's doing, mind you, but it's not like she's doing things just for the sake of being evil. She's doing them for the good of her race's continued existence. Because she has no choice. She can't nicely ask for help. Everybody wants her and her people dead. She has to be smart about every move she makes, and do things that other people might call evil. Otherwise, her people will die out. And what kind of leader shouldn't do everything for their people? She's just been given a shitty hand in life, and she's doing the best she can with it. Even when put in control of the Horde, she doesn't treat the other races with contempt. In fact, her people in Undercity think she's putting other races' needs over their own. And the other members of the Horde think she's putting the needs of her Forsaken over the Horde. No one is happy, but she still tries to treat the other leaders with respect. Unlike Garrosh, who was openly hostile towards everyone besides orcs. Plus, she has the Horde's best interests at heart. Without the Horde, the entire world becomes their enemy. That's why she made the call to retreat at the Broken Shore. If she didn't, the Horde would have lost all of its leaders and crumbled. It's no wonder Vol'jin made her Warchief. While her methods may be twisted, she cares about her people first and foremost, and the absolute best interest of her people is a continued Horde existence. So no one would be more motivated to keep the Horde intact and in power than Sylvanas, and no one would protect it harder than her. Plus, she's a proven leader with years and years of experience. I think people sometimes forget she probably has more leadership experience than all the other Horde leaders combined. Because before becoming undead, she was also Ranger General in Silvermoon, and elves are generally way longer lived than normal races. So, to sum things up, yes, Sylvanas does bad things, but she literally cannot let her race continue living without doing them. The whole world wants her and her people dead, and she wants them to stay alive. She has no choice but to play the bad guy. But still tries her best to respect the other leaders of the Horde in the process. Not that she's perfect, mind you, but she tries way harder than Garrosh ever did. Even if some of them don't approve of her methods either. The Alliance want her people dead, so it's no wonder she sees them as enemies. And she's smart. That's why she knows it's not a good idea to let the Alliance live so close to them on Kalimdor. Her starting a war with the Alliance is completely in character for her, because she's always done whatever she's had to do for the sake of the Forsaken, and there can be no happy endings for her. So, to answer the questions I proposed at the beginning of the video, is Sylvanas really as bad as people say? Yes, kind of. She does bad things, but for good reasons. Because there are no good options available to her. She can't choose a good path to go down. Why is she such a fan-favorite character? Because she's complex and somewhat relatable. It would be easy to write off everything she does as her just being evil for evil's sake, but she actually has pretty good reasons for everything she does. And she's not allowed to be a good person with pure motivations like other races who aren't actively hunted by the rest of humanity. She also kind of has a soft side anyway that contrasts with her mostly dark personality. Like most of her Forsaken, she has living family members and gets emotional when you bring her a locket from her sister, and will even sing a song for you. The best characters are usually multi-dimensional. Plus, she was a scantily clad female character in a fan base with lots of males, which probably added a bit to her popularity on top of her personality. Is she the next Garrosh? Not really, but there are some parallels, so I can understand the comparison. Garrosh wanted what he thought was the best for the Horde, which involved it being full of nothing but orcs. Sylvanas also wants what's best for the Horde, because the Horde is the only thing keeping her race from being wiped out. To this end, she wants cooperation from the other races, and doesn't want to get on their bad sides, which Garrosh did not care one bit about. But her methods of war against enemies are just as bad, if not worse in some instances. Even Garrosh didn't want to use the plague, which Sylvanas has no problems using. But then again, Sylvanas was against the bombing of Theramore, which Garrosh thought was an excellent idea. So, like I said, lots of parallels, but at the very least, Sylvanas doesn't want to go all Orc Hitler on everybody, and doesn't think undeads are superior, and just wants them to be allowed to live in the world. So, what do you think about Sylvanas? Did this video change your opinions about her, even if just a little bit? She's honestly a very interesting character with lots of story potential, and I can understand why people think she's evil. Because, after all, she does a lot of things that could be considered evil, but she does them for what she thinks are good reasons.